we can spend a few more minutes to talk about the influence, how ICTs influence rural development or projects in the rural areas. I'm also interested in it because we had a conference in South Africa, and we were discussing around ICTs and how we can leverage on ICTs to actually create knowledge at the rural at rural areas. And some of you have followed my articles, and I can see some faces here. I try to get the rural areas, urban areas, how we can work together. There is more need now for ICTs to help the rural areas and urban areas because there are too many problems that are coming up. The other day I wrote an article about food and how we need to trace food from source to the shelves, because a lot of people are taking shortcuts. People are injecting different things into foods, and there is need actually to pursue that, to get an app so that when you buy some things from Nakumat, you actually know the source. This is a problem that is global. A lot of products that you see on the shelves, some may be expired, some drugs may not be from the source that you think they are from. All these are the things that we need to discuss here because we are with the people who work around innovation centers. And that's why the topic came up, and you can see even the villages are much more interested in seeing that we can help them using ICTs. So I quickly got something. This is something that was done by the World Bank. I still work with the World Bank on many things in ICTs. We're going to look at it, but more importantly, we would look at the issues around our area. The thing that is happening from this entrepreneurial monthly meeting is that we are getting more and more people interested. And this is what we envisaged, that once we get these numbers of people interested, both those who can fund and those who can work on development of apps, then we actually find the solution that we've been having, because we also need to bring academics in, especially in areas of business modeling, to decide what model that you are going to use afterwards. I'd offered that I would use my graduate students to help, and only a few people who have asked that I've got this project, I need a number of graduate students to work with. And a lot of innovations globally now, because I've been doing research in this area, we are doing it in a very wrong way, where a person who has the technical knowledge sits down and works on an app and comes out to take it to market. But what is happening elsewhere, they look at the problem, they get everybody, social scientists, they bring economists, they bring practically everybody, a multidisciplinary team to look at the problem before the technical people can try to solve it. What happens is that by the time you finish, you have taken care of so many issues that you will begin to revise as you bring the product into market. And this is what we need to see. We need to see a lot more social scientists in this room to talk to those who are developing and help them to understand some of the things that we don't understand. So after I finish, I will call John Katie, and somebody from Ford Foundation is coming. She's on her way to come here. But let me just go through this computer. Times itself keeps on going to the second. So we will look at this, and if you've been reading the newspapers, we are getting into a serious quagmire with the regulatory environment. The regulator says this, Parliament overrules and becomes a regulator. Then we look at the reality check and do the conclusions on this. But this is a graph, although a bit too old, even if it's extended, what you would see that Korea kept on going up and Ghana remained where it was, meaning that the difference between the knowledge gap between Korea and Ghana. Ghana is about the same area as Kenya, is the same. This is because of knowledge. Yeah? The vertical is actually the per capita income. It makes a difference on knowledge. Some of you have been to Korea. Korea, they have digitized everything. In fact, you ask someone who is your grandmother, they would check on their Google type and tell you this is my grandmother. Because they have brought knowledge to people. And this is what we need to have here. The issues that I raised, we need to have them at the fingertips. I have said several times, our farmers hardly understand anything when you talk about productivity or you talk about break-even points. And this is why you are beginning to see a lot of poverty in the rural areas because nobody is giving them the knowledge that the varieties they grew were for that period. There are new varieties which are disease resistant. There are new varieties which produce more. And because you find the acreage they have grown the tea or coffee, new varieties have come that they can be more productive. Nobody understands that. In fact, maize production has consistently dropped in terms of productivity. And nobody is saying it, and we are talking about food security. There are so many variables that we don't talk about, that since we are seated here, we could actually be talking about what are the global dynamics, what is going to happen in the next 10 years. Next 10 years, you are getting 2.2 billion people into middle income. These are consumers. So where would food come from? Africa has got 60% of the arable land, global. It's not in Africa, global arable land. Meaning we have the solution to feeding the world, the 2.2 billion. But do our people know? They don't know that. This is what we want to use this knowledge, deliver this knowledge to the rural areas. They begin to understand how they are related to the rest of the world and be able to succeed. This is what we are thinking. I don't know how we can make sure that they fully understand the global dynamics. Even us here, in the next 2 years, you are going to have practically 1,000 new malls built. What is the impact of malls? It means that the small traders, the mamambogas, are going to die. Because the moment there is a mall, you walk into a mall, you find your vegetables, you find everything. But nobody is looking at it to say, okay, Carrefour is coming to the hub, which is a new mall. Carrefour is coming to Two Rivers, which is a new mall. It's coming to the one on breweries. I don't know what they call it. What do they call it? Well, the new mall, which is just about to be finished at breweries, behind breweries. Garden City. Garden City. Nairobi alone is putting up several mega malls. What is the impact of the malls? How do we relate that to legislation? You know, if Carrefour and the American Walmart comes, are we just going to allow them to bring their products? Or are we going to tell Parliament that we must have a legislation that 40% of the products there are local? That legislation alone, it would mean 2 million jobs, because now you would begin value addition of the productions behind. So these dynamics, we must have forums like this one to discuss how do they relate to our lives. What are we going to do? How can we, what do we need? We need legislation, we need this, we need that, and that. Actually, we just need to be aware, why are there so many malls coming up? A few years ago, on Ngong Road here, there was only Uchumi at Adams Arcade. When we were young, it was just Adams Arcade, which would look like a mall. Then Uchumi Hyper came. We said Adams is going to die. But Uchumi Hyper got full. Then Nakumat came. Then what happened? Everybody thought Uchumi will die, but both are running. Then Junction came. Junction is expanding. Yeah? So what do we do from those dynamics? Actually, you drive through, all of them are full. All of them are full. What does that say? You know, I'm a teacher. What does that tell you? What is the message you get from that? Retail is growing. It's growing at speeds none of us understands. But when retail grows, what are we supposed to do with apps? What advantage can we take from the growth of retail? These are the questions we need to ask. And where do you fit into those global dynamics? Because they are global dynamics. They are global dynamics. If you go to Kigali, Nakumat is growing, opening a branch every time all over the place. Uchumi, Nakumat, they are opening in Uganda and everything. These are expanding, but we are not getting the same message to the rural areas so that we can facilitate production and value addition to feed into the markets. What we would end up getting, now look at the pricing. You go into Congo, an egg is $2. $2. You go to South Africa, it's importing chicken from Brazil because they can't cope with production. Then you walk into Zimbabwe, there are millions of people working without jobs. Can we reconcile that? Who is going to distribute that knowledge? Who is going to tell people that this is a gaping opportunity for you to fit into this? This is why we must begin to discuss and see where apps developers would fit into, what information, because content is what we forget most. How do we disseminate content, and who brings this knowledge to us to disseminate to the people? That's what I thought we can discuss today and see how we can bridge the gap. If you bring some of the developed countries, the knowledge gap is so huge. It's so huge. Just recently, Kenya is signing up with Europe on preferential trade agreements. The Europeans said, we would allow you to ship as much as of your products, and you allow us, we ship as much as we want. Then they bring Carrefour. As we only have flowers to ship to Europe, and we get everything. We are going to get yogurt from Europe. We are going to get milk from everything. Who is supposed to tell members of parliament that it is not a bargain? We should have gone around to disseminate that information. So these are things which we must begin to ask. This knowledge gap, the only way you can reduce it is through the ICTs. That the people know this opportunity. Oops. Okay. Now, we look at this. Knowledge changes the development process. Actually, the creation of effective use of knowledge are key to rapid economic growth. And then ICTs is changing terms under which knowledge can be treated and disseminated. You can look at even Shamba from here. What it's doing is actually knowledge. That the farmers know what the produce is being sold in Europe. Then they can begin to bargain. That's knowledge. It never used to be there. Middlemen used to exploit because they didn't know, the farmers didn't know what was happening. Then you ICT enhances the positive learning of extremities, externalities of knowledge, magnifying the possibilities of recombination of ideas. Yesterday I was speaking at the Intel Apps Challenge, and you could see all the apps. Who were there yesterday? Yeah. You could see the kind of apps that we are getting into. There was none which dealt with content. How do you disseminate the content? In fact, even if you begin with our own knowledge and put it on the mobile platform, we would actually be checking all the time. I did a pilot, and I was still working on it, where we have a few sayings for every occasion. A few sayings for every. Not everybody remembers sayings, especially in vernacular or in Swahili. But when they are said, they make you look like a master, you know. Yeah? Mupenda, anampenda, pete, wanapendana, yeah? Kama chanda na pete. You know, when someone says that, you are done with your speech, because everybody keeps on. And for sure, everybody kept on looking for that so that they can say something. It's a wedding, it's a whatever. And I said, none of our developers has looked at, let me leverage on content and put it on their fingertips. So if it's a wedding and they say, in the next 5 minutes, Dr. Ndemo, you are going to advise this youth. Yeah? And I go through and I say, well, number one is marriage is like a plane. Very difficult when you are taking off, and then smooth when you are up there, but sometimes there can be turbulence, and you know, you have actually finished the advice which you have taken from somewhere. You see, we have not, even in the farming sector, even farmers would want to know, well, I am here. How much fertilizer do I use? Or what is the spacing? How many of you know the spacing of maize plantations? Is it 2 feet, 1 feet, 1 inch? What is it? And you all claim to have been born in a farm. Eh? If you don't know and you have gone to school, what about our people at rural areas? What is the spacing you can put so that you have the greatest productivity? Because if you put them too close, some will not get the sunshine, they will die, isn't it? So there is a space that you leave. This is all knowledge. This is all knowledge. But we don't have. How many of you know the optimal harvest from 1 acre? How would you know that you did well from 1 acre? Yes, sir. No. Where? Yeah? Eldoret is 40, my friend. Optimal. I said optimal. You see now you would have failed. That is why you put money every year in and out. You are actually not breaking even because you are not optimally producing. Because 18 you are happy. Actually it used to be 40, but it's been going down. Now it's at 18, everybody accepts at 18. 18 for you to break even, you need more acreage. There is no more acreage. So all you need to know is that what do I need to do so that my harvest can be optimal. Just getting optimal numbers and providing, like how many bags should I get per acre? If you get 5, you wasted your time. Actually, the money you put to grow that 1 acre, you should have buried it because it's not giving you any profit, any value. And you should have known that before you got into that. Geography providing you a research, escapes national boundaries, distribution of power of innovation systems. I will leave this behind because some of it you can go through in detail. But I think you are getting my point. Do you think you should invest in a dish or you buy mabati for this? Ethically, instead of this dish, would you have bought mabati or what? Yeah? He's saying you should not do this. Would someone living in that house be wanting ICT? Yeah? It could actually. There are so many things here. There are these hills like you find in Mogosho, Moranga. When you deplete the forest, what happens? Their houses are swept and they die. So they actually need to know that they need to leave their forests, all the way. So they need more knowledge. Actually, if they get the knowledge, they will be better off. If they get the knowledge, they will actually be better off. Even telling them that it's secure. It doesn't require, it requires knowledge that you clear around your house so that snakes don't live there. It doesn't, you understand what I'm trying to say. So these people need more of that than we do in the cities because there is so much. The knowledge we used to have, I grew up in the village. If someone had been bitten by a snake, at age 10, we could save that person. You just go straight there, slice the place, and suck the place. But the kids at 10 nowadays, they don't have that knowledge. And that knowledge which was there in the rural, it's never there. We actually need to have it on the mobile they have. And snake bite they put, and they show, you can show using animation what you need to do. You will save the lives of the people from there. You actually need more knowledge here than you need in any other place. So ICT and economic growth, this competitiveness, increased business opportunities, access to market for rural communities. M-Shamba, which came out of here, is actually helping the farmers to interface with the horticultural prices, those who buy the demand side from supply side. Even if they don't understand those names, they are able to do improved delivery of social services, health, education, environment, reducing. So actually we need this in the rural areas. So when we tried to take Pasha, digital villages, to rural areas, we actually had not understood what we were going to do with them in the rural areas. Actually, that is why they failed. Because we needed to have a set of activities that they would do. But we assumed that would come from the village. In fact, initially we said they would use those for emails. We were not thinking about e-health. If they can go there, consult, because If a doctor sees a child in some remote place and sees the eyes are yellow, the doctor would instruct that child must be in a hospital. But sometimes people don't understand what yellowing means. That is jaundice. I mean, the liver is failing. This is what we're saying, that if you have computers that would provide that information to the doctors, they would save those kids by saying, make sure, right now every county has got ambulances. They can actually call somewhere and say, there is a very seriously ill kid in this place, you can help. So when we did the Basha, we did not quite understand, and we were working with the World Bank. We didn't have a lot of this information. We assumed, okay, some would have M-Pesa agency, they would have this. We were prescribing activities. So there are very few that survived because the local people used them better than the others that were in other places. ICT for greater transparency. Government has gone e-procurement. And what's going to happen, e-procurement alone, if it succeeds, would actually create business for these digital centers and sustain them so that they can be able to use other areas. Reduction of corruption, increased civil society participation, then ICT improvement of the poor, better communications for their concerns. We have gone beyond this, by the way. I was not able to put everything because there is money transfer which we need to put here, which is part of the communication, which has improved inclusivity. There is a huge body of study, especially in India. We don't have as much, but most of it has been done in India. Virtually all the papers I was looking at, they are India, India, India. Kenya must begin to get into that realm, and we begin to lead again in Africa to show the way. So the concept of sustainable development, you have economic sustainability, intergeneration concerns, then you have environmental sustainability and social sustainability, equity. How do we get all this together? This is the only way, and this is why I said most people, techies here, must begin now to incorporate social scientists into their thinking. There are several examples I can give where bringing in a social scientist, it gives you a different perspective when you are looking at the app. If we had brought in a social scientist when we were designing the bashas, they would have told us that you can't succeed. You must bring, you must deal with the demand side of this, the supply side of things, and list them if there was an economist in place. All I'm trying to say, to look at things from a multidisciplinary approach, we would be able to do much better than we have done before. And most of you know better than I do. Then this has happened a lot. Digital literacy, we still have a problem. And this is where I would appeal to those of you who are developers here, that I think our forte now should be animation. We animate concepts so that people can understand. If you watch even people who have not gone to school, when they see something on TV, they laugh. Yeah? Because they have understood from explaining through film, through animation. I think for digital literacy, we must move that direction so that we improve on dissemination of knowledge to rural areas. This is what content and the more focus on gender. In Africa, we still have a problem that women don't have access to ICTs. Very serious, because when they are cooking, their husbands are looking for mail. And they finish cooking, they start feeding the kids, and the man is just... So it should be that after she finishes cooking, the man should feed the kids while the woman is looking at the internet. Should be. I can see faces here. So we also must focus on SMEs. We have so many startups, and we have to have a way of growing startups. That I've said 1,000 times, we must begin to grow our startups and support the ones that we see that can go beyond just SMEs. E-business practices. This is when I started about the growth in the retail sector. It gives us so many opportunities that we must begin to think on how can we participate in that. In fact, it should have been a whole topic. The problem with you is that we come here and speak and you people go. You should raise hell here and say you have said retail. So how do we benefit? What is retail? How does it work? So we bring people from the retail sector. They tell us where do they have problems, because for you to provide a solution, you must understand a problem. And that's how you create a solution. Now, none of you has talked to retailers to ask them, where do you have the biggest, even on the ERPs that they are using, just going to Jumi and asking them, tell us how your ERP, how do you know milk is finished? And how do you know where is the supply point? How do we, there's too many questions that we need to ask. How do we tell the customers that you have this where you are? There is Bluetooth, which can tell you so many things. Nobody's using that to advertise and other things. But yet, the reason why I'm saying this is that we cannot be having unemployment and then we have too many problems which are unsolved. And then too many brains which can solve that and create value out of that. So this I brought it because it's, we have a mess. Actually, it's going to be a mess as we move forward because it's going to be even more interesting as we move. But as developers, more problems mean more opportunities. More opportunities. I would have thought that by now we should have gotten the thin SIM ourselves and the other and start playing around and tell the regulators that there is a solution to this. We are actually watching like politicians who said, stop this without knowing what they have stopped. Nobody has done a study. None of us has gone to say a thing. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I'm not using names. Are we together? This is where we should have come in and said, let's show you. We become the guinea pigs. We are the guinea pigs and be able to use it and come with a solution which would become a global solution. But nobody has proposed it. There is no forum to discuss this and say, let's try it. Let's get 100 people to be the group that starts the process and they give the results. And say in 1 month we will tell you, because we'll be testing it. Can we read the passwords in the other network? Why can't we take the leadership? It's a challenge to you now that can we actually go to Equity and say, let's try and give you and bring out the solution, because that solution is going to impact globally, because most regulators are fearful and saying, what if? Because I remember what we went through when we were trying to get approval for M-Pesa through central bank. The financial people were saying, it can't happen, until we said, we will take the risk. If anything goes wrong, we'll take the responsibility. And they grudgingly say, do it. It has changed the world. Can't we, the tech sector, and say, let's take the leadership and actually lead the world? Must it be that solutions come from the Western world? Yeah? I'm just saying these are the problems we have seen. We can actually begin to work through the problems. These are other debates which, but the last point is what I wanted. We must begin to localize. Localization of relevant content. What is happening is, and I don't know whether most of you know, as we are debating about digital, moving to digital, analog, a lot of young people have shifted and they're in Hulu and other solutions from the Western world. Does that give us the local content? It doesn't. It doesn't. We should actually go there to see the quality and actually imitate that level of quality. I watched Hulu and I said, this is what I want. Because it's clear, nice, you know, everything. Then you move on to local TV, you almost sleep, you know. There's a way to do things. So we actually need to do something there, concluding, continue to expand. If most of you read, I don't know whether we have a common email which we can send, the report from McKinsey. It opens up your mind. In the next 5 years, Africa would be doing $75 billion in e-commerce. Can Kenya take 1 billion? Because South Africa would do it. Maybe Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya. Can we take that? Can we start with one of the 75 billion? Why are you? We've talked about retail. We've talked about the networks being there. We're moving to 4G and whatever. What can we do to take it? These are questions. You don't want to ask me those questions at the end. Now I leave it to you. More evolution than revolution, keeping focus on implications of the regulatory environment, cross-border. We are going to have a lot of problems with this cross-border. Some transactions are going to be settled. Even KRA is going to look like, did you get? Repeat and I'm not going. So I'm going to ask John Katie before we go into questions. There are some very interesting ways of improving productivity in the agricultural sector. If you can present, then we can, hopefully by then, Rosemary would have come from Ford Foundation. She hasn't come. By then she would have come. Maybe when you ask the questions, she would have come. Because we need them, because we need to begin to figure out how we can partner with them to create more benefits for the youths and everybody. Maybe while John is going, any quick questions? Or should I ask? Oh, he's through.
Good morning. How many of you have relatives, close relatives, who make a living out of agriculture? That's potentially everyone in this room, isn't it? How many of you guys have attended our Wireless Wednesday sessions downstairs, by any chance? Okay, so as we do such, as we have meetings such as Wireless Wednesday down there, a lot of things are coming to our minds around the kind of apps that have been developed by our developers and entrepreneurs. And I'm going to share some random thoughts around what I've been thinking so far about agriculture productivity and what's happening to mobile apps. Okay, I'm gonna use this. Unemployment statistics in Kenya. 2011 statistics show about 40% of Kenyans are unemployed, 40% of Kenyans between 15 and 64. So if you remove that number of people that are unemployed, and then you compare that with the actual employment numbers, in Kenya, you have about 57% of those who are employed in agriculture. So that shows you, that could begin to show you how important agriculture has become to this economy, and yet contribution of agriculture to GDP is about how much? Less than 30%. So those proportions, 57% of Kenyans are employed in agriculture, so they're supposed to be productive, but the contribution of agriculture itself to GDP is a mere 30%. Of course, those numbers compare quite favorably within the region, but then you'll realize that that could be different if you go beyond the region. But while we investigate this issue of agricultural productivity a little more, a lot of conversations around productivity have been around productivity per acre, number of tons of bags of produce per acre. But how about if you look at it from the point of view of the workers in agriculture? How productive they are. I did a couple of comparisons for some countries, and this is the source of this data is a world development indicators. Those of you who are data scientists, and if you go to data.worldbank.org, you'll encounter some of this data. And if you look at this, so this is a graph of Kenya. The value added per worker in agriculture, that 57% that we were talking about, the productivity is ranging somewhere around, it's averaged $368 per worker for the last 20 years. Now compare this with so this is a graph for the BRICS. For India and China, it's pretty much around there, but as you can see, it's rising compared to the Kenya one, which is stagnating. Compare with Brazil and South Africa and even Nigeria, you'll realize a certain worrying trend that for Kenya it's stagnating at well below what others are doing. But if we could just compare that within the East African region, suddenly Kenya starts doing well. The rest are below there. Curious about the trend with Tanzania. Coming up but slowly. We don't know what that means. But as you can see, productivity of the actual worker in agriculture is fairly low compared to other economies. And that should begin worrying us. And those observations have, over time, inspired a couple of innovations and initiatives to try and intervene in the issue of agricultural productivity amongst farmers, amongst people in the agricultural value chains. GSMA did a certain study in 2013 around the M4D products that are coming up. And as you can see, between a lot has been going on in mobile money, but a lot more has been going on in health, quite a little in agriculture. But all in all, since 2005, a lot of innovations and interventions around some of these problems that you're observing, they are typically developing problems. A lot of innovations have been coming up around that. Back home, how many have heard of eSoko? I'm sure everyone have heard. Farm Drive, the more famous one here is M-Farm, and so many applications have been developed in the last 4 years or so with the aim of intervening somehow in the area of agriculture. From the MLab East Africa database, I could come up with a couple of them, but this is not even exhaustive. There's over this 20-50 applications that you guys and others have been trying to develop to try and intervene in that area of agriculture. But how many have used MFARM by show of hand? How many of you have you? Okay. How many of you have used iCow? Okay. How many have heard of MFARM? Had heard of MFARM before I mentioned it right now? Awesome. How many had heard of Farm Force? Oh, so the awareness within this place is high, but uptake, maybe you guys are not farmers, you're probably not in that sector, so you're not using them. But if I could just move to the next slide. Back in February, I checked with some of the founders of these startups. For MFARM, about 10,000 registered users, lifetime users. Out of all those, the number of active users for that system is almost negligible. And I won't say the name, the number. For iCow, she did blog about it earlier in the year, about 45,000 registered farmers, and out of that, less than 30% active use. Similar numbers from, this is mShamba. How many have used mShamba? Or, okay, how many have heard of mShamba? mShamba is doing something very interesting. Their application is sending SMSs to certain selected rice farmers in Mwea and other sides of the country around a certain innovation in improving productivity and resilience of rice, and hence improving productivity in rice farming. So as of Feb, they had about 4,600 registered farmers receiving those SMSs. So this to me, so far, some of the most successful applications. But how many farmers, how many people are in this agriculture sector? Millions, isn't it? 6 million. At least around 6 million. So these innovations that we've been developing, these startups that we've been hoping to make a lot of money out of, and impact and revolutionize agriculture, why is it that there's not been much uptake? Or one will argue that since iCow recently had a partnership, they have a very strong partnership with Safaricom, and you'll expect that it's going to grow a lot, the uptake. Why is it that the growth of uptake is so slow, and yet these are supposed to be high growth startups, high growth businesses? Why is it that even as we talk about uptake so far, even for the ones that are getting more uptake, there's increasing questions about sustainability, the business model, and whether it's repeatable, whether the revenues that they're getting can scale or they can even be repeatable. So there is challenges around sustainability and uptake, even as we try and intervene. Back to another sector, runaway success in financial sector. These are numbers out of the last CCK report, just before the most recent one. So the numbers were as of end of last year. And okay, I'm not quite sure about the dates, but isn't financial services innovations like M-Pesa a runaway success? So if that could be a runaway success, why not in agriculture? Why not in health? We don't know. And this phenomena is what's been leading me to do a couple more studies and investigation around some of these issues. So I'd like to invite you to converse with me on my blog or on Twitter around some of these issues as I pursue my PhD studies around that. Thank you.
%80 of Kenyan, 80% are in agriculture. They only produce less than 50% of what we consume. Americans, less than 3% are in agriculture. They produce more than 100% of consumption because they export most of it. My conclusion, the people we think are farmers are actually idlers in the rural areas. So, so we must begin to do something. we must begin to do something very serious, because what happens is that politicians cannot solve it, because the more idle the people are, the more likely they can vote the way they want. So we actually need to begin to disseminate knowledge and make their time into more useful time, especially mechanization and stuff like that. But the mechanization is not possible because we have chopped the land into uneconomical pieces. So we are in a crisis, and that is when Africa is wanted to feed the world. So let's allow time for questions. I don't know whether Rosemary has come. Rosemary from nowhere. You can ask questions. By the time she comes, she would have. Yes, Devika.
Hi, I'm Devika. I work at Google. So you spoke a lot about the demand side problems of knowledge in rural areas, but a huge barrier to entry is actually on the supply side. So making more access points, improving infrastructure. Telcos don't even go to rural areas because the ROI of rolling out in those areas is quite low. So how do you sort of look at that dynamic between low incomes, low density, trying to, create more knowledge, but knowledge not having an access point?
It's a very good question, because we had been looking at how do we cover the entire country affordably. And what most countries have done is that they have forced the telcos to share infrastructure, especially in the rural areas. And we had actually begun, and I think government is going to push for sharing of infrastructure at the rural areas. Another way was to, if they can't share, they can create what they call local roaming, meaning that if you are in northern Kenya and you have Airtel, it can actually get into a Safaricom mast and you are able to talk. Those are all solutions that can take us to rural areas. Then we got into this Universal Service Fund, which was going to enable us go, but they have been squibbling. They don't want to give. And I think, in my view, we should have said, as we are quarreling, we actually need 90% coverage or 100% coverage, and then we can discuss about USF. This is the ways we can do. But even if you covered the whole country, we still need people here, the apps developers must provide apps that can be understood. It's only recently when we start looking at better visualization to present information in such a way that people can understand. And very few people who are into visualization and even animation as a strategy to take knowledge to rural areas. It's a huge area. Animation in education is running into, you are in Google, you understand the most. It's tons of money. But we haven't thought about it here to use it to deliver knowledge. A lot of studies now show teachers are going to be completely irrelevant, considering the fact that I could actually go through a 4-year degree without paying for it if I sit down going through the MOOCs from top universities globally. Do I need a paper or do I need to get a degree? I could actually get a degree without the paper itself, meaning that I could go through the courses up to 4th year and finish. It's the knowledge you want, but because people need the papers, they need to go somewhere and pay. I think through policy, we must begin to force telcos, and even government can actually invest, like the investment in the fiber optics throughout the country, and provide 100% coverage through forcing the telcos to share, but we need to push people here to develop content that would actually deliver the message, the knowledge to the rural areas. I don't know whether I answered the question. Another good question from you, sir. Yeah.
When you say you want to use ICT to disseminate knowledge to the rural
Yes.
people, are you saying that the existing channels that we have today is not working?
Which
I'm
ones?
talking about agricultural extension farmers who we have in every single district in this country. We have fisheries officers, we have forestry officers.
Yeah.
Are they not doing their job so that we bypass them and use ICT? Or do they not have the knowledge?
You and I know that those are the names you are saying, that they are agricultural extension officers. I asked the optimal harvest from 1 acre, nobody got it. Nobody got it. This is where we need to have the knowledge. Even themselves don't know the optimal harvest from 1 acre, even those extension officers. Meaning that even them, they need knowledge in order to disseminate that knowledge. And number two is that they have not been effective because they're supposed to use barasas to disseminate knowledge. But you know the barasas, it's men who go there when they don't have anything to do. And they don't talk to the women who actually are the farmers. You know that. You actually know that for sure. I'll give you an example. I tried to help some people to improve productivity on milk, because when I asked them, why do you have this cow? They said, we want to have milk, but it's giving you 1 liter a day. And it's eating as much food as a cow that would give you 20 liters. I said, oh. Then we went through the process, got the cow. But this cow for 20 liter, you need a lot of discipline to get the milk at 20 liters. And of course we did when I maintained the worker who was doing it, but we're paying 10,000 shillings. When I said, now you have milk, you can hire, they fired the person and hired a 3,000 shilling who did not have the discipline. Of course the cow died, and I was the one who was blamed. Yeah? So we have a problem of discipline. We must accept that. We are casual in looking at things. You need to have a cow, as long as it gives you 1 liter and you are the man of the house, you drink that 1 liter, you don't care what everybody else is doing. So once you put this knowledge, and actually that's why I put gender here, and the women at their free time, they are able to look and say, if I didn't get 40 bags an acre from maize, then I must ask questions. They can now go to the extension officer and say, what is it that I missed, that I harvested this much? We are not quantitative. We must accept that. Even yourself, here in Nairobi, you do a farm at home, you don't know what you would harvest. You know, if it is viazi, you don't know the optimal production, you don't know the inputs that you put to get the optimal production. We must begin to be scientific. To be scientific, we provide that information here, and then you begin to understand. Even the extension officers would actually begin to consult that and say, when a farmer says, what do I expect? What do I expect? All of us have tried businesses. That they want to grow wheat. They don't know how many bags they need to get per acre to break even and make money. So you just go and you go asking God very difficult questions to help you. That, Lord help me. God would help you if you actually did everything right. You know, if you can't manage it, you can't just give it to God. So we have a lot of problems. I'm saying we, Africans, we must begin to be more scientific in approach. So when we send the people to rural areas as extension officers, of course, you know, most of them are drinking there and there. They are not doing their job. Everybody knows that. Actually, including yourself, you know that. Yeah. Yes.
I'm Michael. I'm a local entrepreneur. I like your thoughts on dissemination of knowledge. But I think there's also a cultural aspect to it in terms of how people gain knowledge and gain learning. It seems to me, since I'm a foreigner, I have different glasses to look at, that a lot of Kenyans have challenges finding information or seeking information. So it's like, you know, you want to be told. Right? You go to school and you're told, now you finish school. Now you've been told so, you need all you know. You know, one of my favorite questions around here is, or anywhere for that matter, what is the last textbook you read after you finished your education? The answers are not so good. Right? Because people are not looking for the information. They want the information to automatically come from up there. And, you know, he has to run around and talk to a lot of people, so it'll get a while before he gets there. I heard a quote recently saying, learning over education, that education is what someone else do to you, but learning is what you do to yourself. And I think that's very, very important. Personally, I have a very, very curious mind, so I'm always poking my nose into things that have no relevance to what I'm doing, but I'm just curious, how is that working? Why is it like this? And so on and so on. One of the things that do have relevance is that I build accounting systems for small businesses in Kenya, but I've never been trained as an accountant. Officially, I know nothing about accountancy. But from my experience, unfortunately, I have to say that I know more about accounting than many of the accountants I meet. I mean, if you're doing a field and you're not keeping current, you're not, as I said, reading a textbook after you finished your education, that information will be really, really hard. And I think it's a cultural thing in terms of, well, we're just waiting for it to come.
It is actually true that we need to actually calibrate our culture and begin to be curious.
Like the example you said, that you can go online and you can complete a world-class study, you just won't get the paper. Who in Kenya does that? You can say anywhere. It's not, you know, it takes a lot of discipline to do, and so a lot of people think it's a good idea and they try and they fail, but it's not something easily done because people are not, you know, craving that information, that knowledge. And I think that there's a cultural change that also should be worked at.
Who can tell me the optimal taste of githeri? Optimal taste of githeri. Ugali? Ugali. Optimal. Or ugali, which one do you like? The hard, the soft, the middle, what? Which one? Ugali. That for centuries we have cooked ugali, and the only innovation that has been done over the past 100 years is by Unilever, by adding blue band. Has anyone ever tried to, even salt, we don't measure. We don't measure that we have put this many, let's put this much. and then you put and say, oh, it's too much. Add what? Add ongeza maji. And by the fact that when you add water, you actually don't have what you intended to cook. You have a totally different thing. Yeah. Question? Yes. I can't see Rosemary here.
My name is Martin. My name is Martin, and my name is Martin, and my concerns are more immediate. My friend did mention the reading culture, that's a problem, but then I'm thinking, even though you try to change it, it will take a long time to change. But in the meantime, like say you mentioned how a mother will go and cook, come feed the children. She doesn't have time to go and access the internet. But then you see at our home, say for example, my mom, even if you gave her time to rest, she wouldn't really want to go and check the internet. She doesn't have that motivation. But then you see in here, we all have like budding talent, and they all need help to access these people. So I try to think about it, how maybe these innovations that come from these brains can be made readily accessible to these people who are not, don't have the reading culture, and even if they have the free time, they don't have the motivation to go and look for these innovations. I try to think about it, and all I can come up is just the common methods of advertisement, billboards, internet, which most of them still don't access. So maybe since you deal with these things every day, maybe you could inform me more on it. How can we like get to them?
You're right and you're wrong. Yeah? You are right in the sense that we have not found a way of actually disseminating knowledge where people will be interested. But some time back, Parliament put the CVs of members of Parliament online. Does anybody remember? All ISPs broke down because every Kenyan went to check, who you are kuenda shule? You know, and they said, there are things that are forced, and I have actually been observing. If you send WhatsApp, like the one for the former Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, did anybody see it? There were. Everybody I knew was sending to everybody, and everybody was busy looking at how he goofed when he traveled. So there are things that we can use to interest people to begin to be interested in online. For sure in the next 5 years, if it's not Google or Google or another whatever, you practically have everybody online. You're practically going to have everybody online. So when you come home to say, Mom, I'm going to get married to so and so's daughter, they just go and say, oh yeah, this is. They will be interested in that. They would actually be interested in knowing who is that guy. This is a bank robber you are getting into our family. We must go from, that's why I said we need to go through animations, joke types and whatnot. In fact, even the Montessori, they use, they take you from, anybody here who understands how Montessori works? They use visuals that make you to become interested and move and whatever to a point of learning. Those methods are there. We have not used them. We have not used them. I said if we brought content that the people are interested in, it would lead to new things. If you read about Korea, when Korea landed the fiber optics, every man in the morning, their eyes were red because they spent the whole night watching pornography. But today, they are not watching pornography. They are using internet for other things, meaning that they have gone through that and discovered new, better things to do with the internet. Let there be a connectivity throughout the country. Begin to provide simple information that people will be interested. And slowly they would actually adapt and begin to do. You know that most people started with email or just typing and whatever into search, into now more complex things. When they know that the answers are there, only one farmer succeeds and says we harvested 40 bags an acre. Because we are replicative in nature, every other farmer would ask, where did you get this from? You would actually get another 100, and then it expands that way. So because people are replicative, one person buys a motorbike and everybody bought what? There are motorbikes now, even places you never thought there would be a motorbike. Because we replicate, we think everybody is doing that. So if we are able to provide information that would make other people succeed, they would ask, what is it that you used to succeed? I say, oh, information is available online. This is how you get it. They would actually use it. They will use it. Yes.
My name is Asha. I work for Synapis. Now, I've heard you talking a lot about the harvest, but I haven't heard you talk more about these people actually harvesting the 80%, harvesting and actually finding a place to sell them. Most of it goes to waste. This I just got from Devika. So is the problem that this 80% cannot get to the production level that we need? Or is it that this 80% will not get to that production because they will not have an easy access to actually sell it?
Another very good question is that the other day I would answer the question. I was looking for solar-powered coolers, solar-powered refrigeration. And I said, God is good because they are there in China, very cheap. And the way we function here in Kenya is that when mangoes are in season, we eat what we can eat. And when they are off season, we switch off until again God gives us the mangoes. And I said, these things grow in Kitui. Yeah? Kitui has got a lot of sunshine. They can't harvest everything, put them in a freezer from the solar. And when demand is not, supply is not there, they provide. What would happen is that when they are off season, a glass of mango juice would sell double the price it's sold when the mangoes are in season. And I said, someone is not thinking. Yeah? So even if you don't know anybody in Kitui, go and marry a woman from there and get something to grow and show them this is how we compete with nature in many ways. If you go to the US, they don't throw one orange away. They take them to the freezers so that they can even out supply. We don't think about evening out supply, and that is why you get into a glut and nobody has anything. Nobody is able to sell because the supply exceeds demand. So you actually need to take that and supply enough for the market so that the pricing can be level throughout the year. This is how the Chicago Board of Exchange was created, because the farmers used to lose money all the time, and said we can actually regulate supply. Through regulation of supply, it means that you can have stability in pricing. And that's, we have not seen investors going into creating that Board of Exchange. Ethiopia has done so well through this lady, yeah, they have done so well. We haven't done it. We haven't gone there to see what they have done to do it here. The same thing with vegetables that we like, the delicacies. You just, are they in season? If they are not in season, you forget. You wait until, even you forget about what the taste was like. So we actually need to think a little bit and leverage on the God-given sunshine to even out supply, and everybody will be okay. Even maize, the same thing. During harvest, we need to figure out what happens in the North Rift. How do you even out supply so that they don't get hit by unscrupulous businessmen? Yeah? Yes, sir.
This takes me back to the issue between equity and Safaricom. I'm just wondering, because if you look at KCB, they developed M-Banking. And if you go through the book by Tony Omwansa, Money Real Quick, where they're trying to elaborate on the issue of mobile transfer, I've really read it, and Tony is my friend. From your own position and from what you know, why is it that Parliament is coming in to overrule CA? Because CA is the regulatory body. So I don't know whether because he's in court, we leave in order for you to just tell us something about that.
I think it's because there is no knowledge. There is no knowledge. Nobody has come up. I said, well, I have this thin thing and I put it there. Look, I just took the password of this. You know, if someone showed that, then they are justified. They don't know. They are groping in the. Even CA, it's saying we need a trial. Yeah, this is why we are saying, since we have a lot of developers here, we have a lot of people here who understand this. If it is doing that, can we reprogram it? Can we do other things so that we can create safety? And if we find that solution, it can be scaled up globally. So my challenge is that we could lead the world from a problem that is not being solved because you have a multiplicity of regulatory places. We haven't heard from central bank. So we actually need us to say, let us study this. And if we can call and say, let's see what it looks like, and put it, and send money, and play around with it, and come up with an answer. Why can't we do that? Are we not trusting ourselves that we can't do it? Yeah? Did I answer your question, or yes, sir. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Hatton, and I'm a cracker. I would want to answer the question he has asked.
Thank you.
Morally, if you can do a research on if an idea comes of an ICT, the way it is always opposed. Like for instance, like the way the parliament guys are doing, those guys do not have the knowledge of ICT, how it works. The same case goes to like the Safaricom guys. Once you are big, at times people get to fear, don't be selfish. No, we don't want people to experiment on our things. That's why you find like the Safaricom guys are now saying once they share their data to equity, there will be some security risk or something. But moral is about people are always worried. This new technology that is coming in, what is it going to do to us? What will happen to our jobs? So in that conflict is where you find that always when something new comes in, they have to come in and try and ship in. How are we going to prevent this from coming up or growing big? And if you can look at them, there are some old guys. I can see young, which is good. You can understand how these things are. But guys are worried, are too much worried. What is going to happen to? Yes, we want to embrace the technology, but what is up for us? And some of them are so selfish in that they are looking. These guys passed this. I didn't get anything, so we have to drag it and first eat something. Thank you.
My background is IT, and if I can take you through for those who don't know. You remember when Equity launched Mkesho? And Mkesho is now called what? Is now Mshwari. And you remember they launched Mkesho through Equity. So the issue is about sharing the profits, and there's a war between Safaricom and Equity. It goes beyond what you are saying. So, but anyway, that's for another day.
Bottom line is knowledge, research, knowledge.
Good afternoon. My name is Philemon, and I work in the agriculture sector. I just started. So I wanted to go back to agriculture a bit, and first of all, a comment. I think the biggest thing we are not talking about when it comes to agriculture is agriculture finance. Like farmers are not able to access credit as other sectors. If you look at 2012 data in lending, you'll find that only 3% of all the loans in Kenya given out went to the agriculture sector. But issues come on both sides, the supply and demand side. So when I talk about supply, like banks giving loans have issues with farmers, and farmers have issues with banks. So the biggest challenge, the biggest thing I see is how can we get farmers to be investor ready, but the investors being banks, and how can we consolidate we talked about, just a minute, we talked about this issue in another venue about like small scale farming and like land fragmentation. So I think what we need to do, to be thinking about, is how do we like make these farmers to be like viable farming units, so that like banks are willing to actually like lend to them. Thank you.
Actually, I sort of answered that question with the Ethiopian model. We need investors, not NCPB. We need actually investors where after you harvest your maize, you drop the maize there, you get an electronic receipt, the banks would accept the electronic receipt. That's how you can improve that. This has been done successfully in Chicago, in the US, has been done successfully in other parts of the world. It's just us who are stuck with NCPB. NCPB takes the maize and forgets sometimes that the market have changed, the prices have changed, and that's how the farmers get to suffer. So we actually need an active market where the banks can know the projected demand. Actually, to be very honest here, we need to know the national consumption of certain products. If you go to US, they will tell you Kenya consumes this much, this type of beans, and this is the supply, and usually this is the gap. If you want to export, you can export at this time because there is nothing in the market. We need to know on average, a human being in Kenya eats how many grams of ugali. From there, we work backwards into demand and fully understand. We still haven't understood it. This is why we say big data would help us to solve these problems. But more importantly, are the investments around the infrastructure, and be able to give comfort to banks to actually provide resources, knowing that this harvest has been put somewhere and we have the electronic receipt which can be used as a trading instrument. Right now we don't have that. A farmer will tell you, I have 200 guineas, half of them have aflatoxin. So you take it, you can't sell it anywhere. So we actually need to build infrastructure around it. And there is East African Commodities Exchange, which is beginning to do that. We must leverage on it to be able to have an efficient market. Let's have yourself and this gentleman and that one. Yeah.
Because we really must have large farms. If we have 1 acre, 2 acres, the banks will not be.
They will not be interested. I have written extensively. Yeah, we can change that culture with these people. We have a lot of youth, and I alluded to that here, who have nothing to do with the village, who have nothing to do with their father's land, which is 1 acre, and there are 8 boys, and the mzee is waiting for them to divide into 1/8. Nimekupatia yako hapa, you know. So we actually must change. We must change. And before we change, there are places like along the Tana where we should do large-scale farming. The government has 1 million acres there. We must begin large-scale farming, and the banks can begin to talk. But 1 acre, a quarter acre, you are wasting your time. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Martin. Mine is, I'm thinking, why don't we use what used to work then? If you go back in the 80s and 70s, the cooperative movement was very successful. For me, I'm thinking, I haven't had give a role to the cooperative movement in this discussion. So I believe the farmers believe so much in the cooperative movement because it worked for them then. And if it can be restructured and maybe disrupted, let's say that.
But the cooperative was the problem. They were not innovative to bring in new technologies to promote the farmers from the varieties they had to
That's
new
why
ones.
I'm saying
even KTDA, which has been surviving, it is on the rocks right now.
That's why I'm saying what if it can be disrupted? Instead of now being centralized from being into KTDA all the way, maybe through the counties, into smaller, more specific.
You are actually
units.
advocating that we go back to landlines and abandon the mobile. Yeah?
The mobile can come in also.
The
They
mobile
can use, it can come in
who
through
who
that
would
also.
bring change in the cooperative? Who would bring the disruptiveness? Everything is being disrupted. Who would bring change?
The mobile also. Because even
No,
you see
who is the mobile in the
if
the
you have
cooperative?
actually, one of the problems with the cooperative movement was accountability. Where you have like a farmer doesn't know where his money is going. If we could have the mobile technology, leverage on that, and be able to provide knowledge, information, I can see how my account is, how my produce is, and how it's working. Then I think
that's what we are discussing here, that you actually need to come up with an app that would help farmers keep pace with the marketing of their produce in the rural areas. That is the topic for today. We actually must begin. You seem to be understanding some of it. You seem to understand where the problems are. And that is how we need the farmers, the sociologists, the economists, and whatever, and come up with a comprehensive, disruptive technology which would actually change the rural dynamics. In fact, that is why we have been raising. I'll give you.
Good morning. My name is Peter. My question will base towards more of agriculture. And I could also pose a question to John when he talked about the figures he gave in terms of the GDP vis-a-vis agriculture being 57%. In my observation, I'm seeing as if we are engaged in the agriculture of the stomach. More or less, we do the farming for maize, beans, and the likes. My thinking would be if we engage in agriculture for commercial businesses. And here I'm looking at in terms of what happened to our cotton industry. This was agriculture that was business-based. Yeah? What other agriculture is based in business that can actually, if it is going to increase the input of agriculture to our GDP, what other areas are we supposed to be looking into? When I talk about cotton, I'm thinking we have a lot of incentives to it, but we are not fully exploiting them. We've heard about the AGOA, the entire systems that are put in place. We are not exploiting it. So, if you mind to comment.
The answer is actually culture. The culture, I went through the list of AGOA. There are 8,000 products, yeah, which include fish, includes tuna. You know, all the tuna comes to East Africa to spawn, and goes away, you know. All you need is to put a net and get tuna and take to Americans, yeah. We are not taking one, not one in that list, not one. We don't ship. Yet some of the tuna, bluefin tuna, $5,000, one, moja. I don't earn that from the university. So I would do better if I went to Mombasa, nashika mbili, $10,000. Yeah, we are actually not doing it. The same thing, we poured milk when we had oversupply, yeah? We poured it, and some of the products under Goa is actually cheese. Cheese. That milk, when we had overproduction, we would have actually made cheese and done an export, or made yogurt, and then the president declare a national yogurt day. Everybody takes one glass of yogurt, and we swallow the whole thing. So there are several things that we actually end up wasting. We have knowledgeable people here. He's studying this in PhD, but the Minister for Education, Agriculture doesn't know him. It doesn't know him to ask him, what are the dynamics? How can we improve from 365 to 4,000 in terms of productivity per person? Anasema hii ni kasi ya wananchi waende kulima huko because they are not creating problems in terms of looking for jobs. So we have a serious problem. We must begin to address those problems through such fora. Yes, sir. Please.
Hello, my name is John. I use a researcher and an entrepreneur. So through a discussion today, I've had a couple of things mentioned. So you mentioned the mom who goes to Facebook to check out her daughter's potential husband. Someone else mentioned the fear MPs have because they do not understand the technology. And then most of the answers to the questions that are rising, we keep on saying it's culture. Culture needs to change. And that's on one side. On the other side, we talked about, billboards and how do we make these people take up the technology. And so it's as if we have two sides. One side, the people side, and the other side of us trying to make, just if we listen to our statements, how do we make farmers, how do we make these people, could it be us as the technology people have missed the point where we understand the person? So could it be that the most disruptive technology is the most accepted technology? And to get it most accepted, could it be that we need to get a proper understanding of the person? That way we are not forcing the technology to them, but we've gone through their need and actually come up with the technology based on that.
I want to give you a question to John because one thing he didn't show you is how to make farmers, how to develop farmers out of non-farmers through a gaming technology, which would create your interest and be able to do the farming. And that's why I was saying that we haven't utilized gaming, we haven't utilized animation, we haven't utilized better visualizations and stuff so that people can comprehend. If you look at the billboards are the most difficult thing to make because you want to look and get the message, you know. I normally don't watch Kenyan adverts because they give you a solution, you know. If you see the the UK adverts, they make you think. You see, so what? So what have you have seen the Coca-Cola during the World Cup? It took a while for people to know the admirers. What were they? They were and it actually made you think that they could be actually clueless on this thing. We don't do that. The billboards are actually the most difficult, even in research, to do just one. I don't know how many researchers are here to do just a chart, and you are able to see the solution. But John, you can answer that.
Quite related to the last two questions about whether farmers and people in agriculture are doing it for the business or commercial objectives, or is it just for hand to mouth? One of the hypotheses I have in my research is one of the reasons why uptake of M-Agric apps like M-Farm, iCow, and so on and so forth, why it's not coming up as fast as we expect is because these people that you're targeting as your users are not, a lot of them are not in it for the commercial objectives. The agribusiness mindset or the entrepreneurial intent, it isn't quite strong enough for them to think about using your applications or your tools as tools of their trade to maximize their productivity. So one of the ways that I will be exploring in the study is, what if the application by default has a way of, it has some kind of what they call hedonic motivation that could drive people towards that kind of entrepreneurial intent as they use your application. So indeed, the mindset of the users as to whether they're just doing it for subsistence or for commercial purposes is a big problem, according to what we are seeing.
But even things that we have that ought to be commercial, we don't commercialize. I see so many people with avocado for shade. Naina, it falls in, it hits them like telling them, I am here, make money out of me. But they don't, they don't make money. Nobody has thought about making lotion out of, and yet these lotions are all over, isn't it? Avocado lotions. Nobody has said, let's look at that. I planted 1 acre of bananas because bananas just grow kisi like that. And when I went back, the shampoo boy had given everybody because he thought they are there to be given to people. I mean, he didn't think it's a commercial thing. You know this. They've said, oh, you can take that one. And it's a problem we have. Somebody was, the last two. One, yeah? Oops, sorry, you are here. Let him finish and then.
Hi guys, my name is Kelvin. I work at the iHub. Aside from that, I also have a startup that is called Jenga Africa. So what we are talking about here, it sort of
touches you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what you do on Jenga Africa is that you come, you put up a project there, and people come and invest in it. So wherever your rural area is, go and look for projects that will add value to the farmers and come and put them. Just talk to me. I'm around. Yeah.
Come on. Yes.
My name is Magdalene, and we have a barrier. We have a lot of challenges in achieving all what we've talked about. Like, for example, the politics in Kenya, especially the MCAs who have a lot of misplaced priorities. Like when you come with an idea and you try to reason with the people, because the MCAs are supposed to be the guys who reason with the people in the lower level, but they are not providing any solution. They have a lot of misplaced priorities. How are we going to overcome that challenge?
Get a disruptive technology that deals away with MCAs. And they just because bad politics has had many countries, like Brazil, for example, for many years until they got a solution. And I think we need to go around those who are professional, who are not interested in whatever. And the private sector actually can drive economic growth.
My name is Wambua. I have an insight with regard to the uptake of apps, the activated apps. I think most farmers are not so technologically good. So probably that's the reason, that's why they've been no reach. Probably could have apps which have SMS platform or something of that sort. All right.
Probably. SMS, yeah.
On the technology being a barrier, I have a couple of question marks about that, because how many of you guys have your grandmothers using, or at least receiving M-Pesa? Many of you. Sometimes if something is really necessary for you, you'll actually do what you need to actually access it or use it. So I think technology as a barrier sometimes can be overcome depending on what really is your motivation.
There have actually been studies on monkeys, and they play around, and actually it gets it. As we have a lot of knowledge, we can do it. Do you have a child? I see people with 3-4-year-olds. They take a phone home, and then these people assemble it. I mean, 4 years is not beyond the nursery school, but they do it how? Yeah, we have a lot of knowledge. It's just that we haven't used it. So can we, there was one person. Yes, at the back.
Hi, I'm Joseph. Maybe you can give us your insight on open data, the project, and if apps are developed, not just for disseminating information, but also for collecting information from the rural areas, and now use that in the, like a government big data strategy for enhancing rural economy.
Very good, because how many of you know M-Survey? M-Survey, yeah. M-Survey gathers a lot of data. We actually need more data, more apps for data. For example, if we can have an app in every dispensary, in every small hospitals, just to report who came in, I mean, how many people came in, what kind of problems they had, and actually reporting and sending to a central place where the analytics are done. What that will tell you is that if there is an epidemic, you would actually see it before even the media goes there, and you are able to do that. We actually need more apps on various things, even the harvest of food crops. We actually need to know, I planted in such a small place, because nowadays you can measure land by going at every corner and clicking, and it gives you the size and what the harvest came from there. And if the ministry gets the information, they will know the levels of productivity are going down. We must now intervene using the extension officers. We actually must begin to do that, and let it be on the open. The one that I really need to be open is what the UK have done. Every doctor, they report on the patients they see. Every surgeon you see. Such that if a surgeon has done 50 surgeries and 49 deaths from surgery, you decide whether you are the 51st. You actually need that information. How many people have you killed since you started operating? Then you decide. I mean, this is something government ought to make in the open, so that we know that the person, the surgeon I'm going to have is a successful surgeon. Can I ask if Rosemary has come? Rosemary, I don't know. Anybody from Ford Foundation? We had a bad day today. We missed the main speaker. We missed the sub-speakers. But can we finish here then? And thank you, but next time, the gentleman who was going to speak about value addition is actually said he would not miss what may come on 25th of October. He would come and speak. It's an area that has got a lot of interest in the sense that food is the most important thing in the next 10 years, as I said, from global dynamics, meaning you are having 2.2 billion people into middle income. Those are consumers. So me, I'm actually planning to go into farming because that is where the money would be. It has not been there before because we have been poor most of the time, but you can see from the number of malls, we are getting people into middle income. They need VRC, they need whatever. So come next time, listen to value-added services. Did you want to say something? Can I give it to you back? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ndemo and John, for gracing us today. Like Dr. Ndemo said, we look forward to seeing you on the 25th. I hope that you all registered at the front desk. Everyone whose email address we've captured will be able to send you a brief on this conversation today, as well as the slides. And also we'd like to send you a feedback survey form. It would be great if you could send us back some feedback. Tell us what you thought of this particular forum. Tell us what kind of topics you'd want us to talk about in future. So thank you for coming. I think there's still a few snacks left outside that you can pick on your way back. Thank you and have a great weekend. Oh, yes, and thank you very much to Chase Bank, who sponsored the series of forums that we've had.